here in Toronto. We make stuff, we make content for sort of all platforms, from television to features to YouTube. I think the relevant talking points or our history that brings me to this panel is social audience engagement is a big part of how we not only market programming but develop programming. We did a show last year, a YouTube scripted series called Carmilla, that we used a lot of audience mapping with, and we're at about 30 million views on that worldwide. And now we're taking the approach to that and putting it to features, actually, with a feature we have called Darken, where that will actually launch with a highly serialized, multi-episodic YouTube series that will tell the origin of the feature, and we'll use audience engagement strategies to build towards the release of the feature itself.
Hi, my name is Yvette Vargas. I'm from New York, but I live in LA. And I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Digital Rain in LA. It's a multi-platform storytelling, content creation, production company. And at the company, for myself, I'm the writer, director, producer, and a multi-platform content creator. And basically what that means, and very much echoing Jay, is that basically we tell stories across multiple platforms, one franchise at a time. One of the successes that we've had of late was a digital series called Dark Prophet, which actually never even premiered in the digital space. We ended up premiering at Sundance in 2014. So it was a digital series that actually was very much, it could have premiered on television. We definitely made it to the level of television quality, but it ended up premiering at Sundance, and I was in talks already with DirecTV. So based on that buzz from Sundance, all 11 episodes actually ended up premiering or just airing on a DirecTV channel. And then from there, the series was nominated for 2 Emmys in the interactive category. Last year, lost to Game of Thrones, but I can live with that. It's HBO, they win everything. But with that, I developed this model where I'm able to actually take any project for our clients, where it's a lot of television series content, as well as comic books and features and live experiences and gaming and apps, and run it through this model where we're growing audience, monetizing. There's lots of built-in monetization strategies with every single platform and medium, and hopefully, the content itself is of quality and also gaining critical acclaim, because that's, for us, that's definitely the winning. Just basically how the metrics of how you read success in this digital storytelling age in the 21st century. It's about audience building, monetizing, and critical acclaim. So what I'm going to be speaking about today is literally that model that we use in the creative process, as well as testing every medium and platform along the way, and as we grow the franchise.
Okay, thank you. Good intro. My name's Gary Faber. I run ERM Research, and we are a market research firm. And we specialize in, well, film for the most part, but we do a lot of live theater and a lot of television work as well. And our job basically is to work with filmmakers and distributors and even exhibition on understanding audiences and how to better deliver content for them and how to make films maybe better. We do a lot of research screenings, what a lot of you may have been a part of or seen me there at them, where we'll show early cuts of movies to audiences and we'll get the feedback on how to make it better. And then we'll also go ahead and work with them on how to actually market the film and better kind of tweak their message to reach out to the public. So a lot of traditional methodologies incorporated with a lot of new cutting-edge methodologies as well. And by the way, I am from New York, and I still live in New York.
All right. I visit.
My name is Michael Gottwald. I do not live in New York nor Los Angeles, nor am I from either of those places. I live and work in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I'm part of a film production company and another sister company of it, Court 13 and Field Office Films. We produced Beasts of the Southern Wild, and I've since been involved in producing the Vimeo on-demand cycle of High Maintenance, if people are familiar with that series. And then, we've also produced some small documentaries that we took to Sundance. I come at this angle, or this sort of topic, because I had a fellowship at a thing called the Cinema Research Institute, which is a project of NYU, where for a year we studied how you can use the grassroots organizing tactics of the Obama campaigns of, President Obama campaigns of 2008 and 2012, how you can use those in the distribution of films. And a lot of that had to do with data and proper management of data. So that's sort of my way in here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. That research was fascinating, actually. I was really pleased to be able to get a hold of that. So in terms of what audiences want, I mean, the title of the session is How to Unveil the Monster, and that came from some additional research where we were looking at that within the story arc, within the actual trajectory, there is a scientific method of understanding at what point does an audience react to different kinds of stimuli or different kinds of impacts within the story. So there's research out there that claims that this is totally scientific, that you can literally time the time to unveil the monster. And so the question that I want to ask the panel is, do audiences know what they want? And I'm going to leave that open, whoever feels that resonates with you. Do audiences know what they want?
I can say for certain that audiences know what they don't want.
Yeah.
That is very clear, that they have no idea what they don't want. They know what they don't want. As far as knowing what they want, I think there is an interesting idea that I'm going to probably say no for the most part, that it's our job as content creators to give them something that maybe they didn't know that they want. You mentioned Game of Thrones. That's the great example. If I pitched any of you on that property, everybody would say, there's no way I'm ever going to watch that show.
Yeah.
Probably Walking Dead, the same thing. People are watching zombies that are like, why would anybody watch a zombie show? That isn't right.
I know, that's all everybody watches zombies.
So I think there's a point there that they don't know, and it's our job to show them that they want it. But within all of these stories, there's elements that audiences do want. These shows are dressed up as packages of emotions that audiences really want, or smart characters that audiences want to watch. So that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I use the analogy, a very specific small analogy, but I saw Whiplash last year, and I loved that film. And I don't even know how, the trailer got me. That's what got me in there. And I went and then tried to tell a lot of people about it. And I used the very specific example of my ultimate Frisbee co-ed team, who are not, it's a very specific example, but they're not artists in a sense. And I was have you guys seen Whiplash, like stand around after a game? Everyone's like, oh, what's it about? You say, well, it's about a drummer and he's trying to make it in the school. And everyone's just like, no, not for me, not for me. And then actually I kept on it, and people came back over the next couple of weeks and said, I saw it. Some guy was like, I saw it twice. I was like, that was amazing. And so to go and say an audience, I guess it's that thing of like saying a population. A population may have an opinion, but to an individual, and maybe that'll bring us to the Netflix recommends topic, like to an individual, you know what you sort of think, you know what you have some senses, but I think the job is just to explore, right? That's the new digital revolution, is the exploration.
Yeah. Well, I kind of come at it, well, I agree that people absolutely know what they don't want and what they don't like. But when people are searching for content, they usually go to genres that they like and themes that they like, past content that they've seen that has resonated. They're looking to. It's kind of like someone who's hooked on anything. They want to basically duplicate that experience that they get from something that they actually love and connect with and they're really passionate about. So people are searching for things that have moved them in the past. So that absolutely speaks to some data, knowing that, and there are some popular themes and some popular genres. So, I tend to think that there are a good amount of people that know what they're looking for. They may not be able to know specifically what the story is, or this new character that comes along and blows everybody away, or there's just some new kind of structure in a story that kind of, just makes people think higher in terms of storytelling. So I'm kind of not necessarily in the middle because I definitely do agree that not most people know what they know what they don't like, but they're definitely searching for things that they've loved before, and there's a tremendous amount
Until
of group.
they see the thing they've never seen before.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And then it's like,
that's-
holy
yeah,
crap, I've never seen this before.
which is fantastic. And that's, as creators, that's absolutely what we're always trying to create is like, wow, what is that thing that we haven't seen before that can really move a generation, can say something just with visuals and so few words and everything else. So I think there's a lot to be said for knowing that people are smarter, or the audience is smarter than they've been given credit for in the past, and that they are searching for something that moves them.
Michael, would that have come out with high maintenance? I mean, I would imagine that, especially from a webisode perspective, how would the audience have discovered it and engaged with it?
Well, it's funny. As I was listening. Oh,
That's it, folks.
You're pretty.
Whoa.
That was
yeah.
Beasts of
the
the
data was wrong.
There's your monster, guys. There's your monster.
I was thinking about it that it's these days, from coming at it from kind of an independent film space or area, it's like I think that there's a high premium because a lot of the times where you're launching your film are in a space. When I think about the films that we've made, you're launching them in a space where it's sort of predisposed to anybody kind of coming in, and then there being like festivals, for example, and then there being a very high premium on word of mouth or external validators, people who say, I swear you have to see Whiplash. I really, and if it's not a friend talking to their ultimate frisbee team, it's somebody, in a publication. There's because there's such a glut of production, I feel like there's a higher premium on all the people in the vast internet saying, no, we swear this thing out of Sundance is the thing you have to see. No, and it's trickier when there is no set launching point like that. So the reason that people knew to watch the second season of High Maintenance is because all of the first episodes were available online for free. So there was no in a vacuum of not having that kind of space to like a festival, like an actual physical space, and you're just dealing with something prior, like the vast internet, then I think having free content, I guess is what I'm saying, to build up a following and to build up information, people who, to build up a fan base, to build up an email listserv is crucial. And then there's a whole other discussion as to whether or not those fans of that first free season, transferred over and watched the second season. But that's more of a conversation about kind of paywalls and, SVOD and everything like that.
But I think this also leads into like what the actual data is, and I feel like Jack's ready to discuss this. What is the data? What's out there?
Yeah, I think what the panel just said was correct. People know what they don't want, but when you ask them specifically what they do want, you don't get a certain answer. A lot of it, I think, it's the audiences, they're not aware of what they want. Consciously speaking, like, there is a trend, there's a pattern behind it, they're just not aware of it. But data, on the other hand, that can show what the trend is, what pattern or combination of these elements are that would draw in audiences while they themselves may not even be aware of. That's the beauty of data analytics, and you're looking at it on a different perspective by just asking people, what do you want?
Yeah, but what actual data is there? I mean, what is it that is floating around on the internet? What is being collected about us as an audience? What is being collected about our habits? Where is it being collected? Like what's out there? What's out there about each of us?
Everything you can imagine, basically. Yeah, when you go online, you're being traced mostly by cookies, and I don't want to get too technical, but your actions online, what you watch, what web pages do you go on, it's all being traced. And I don't think there's any way to really stop that nowadays. Some way it probably helps people's lives, suggest you things you want, things you like, but in some ways it maybe does involve some privacy issues. That's my view on that.
I mean, as an example, the way we approach now, especially with digital, like highly serialized, highly scripted YouTube series, is you have a sense of what we want to do. We use a non-technical process of drawing Venn diagrams, but we do that through sort of doing social social hashtag scrapes, really. And the thinking being, let's make a show for a very specific audience. I even mentally sort of say, let's make a show for 2,000 people, because within the vast sea of the multi-billion viewer universe of the internets, 2,000 people being that specific actually is quite a few. But trying to go and get a bunch of people is actually really broad. And I use an example. We made a series, I think sort of mistakenly, called Mislabeled, about fashion. And the problem was the show was about fashion. And going out into the world of the internet and even trying to research and find out and learn about that audience is next to impossible, because that's so vast. It's like doing an office workplace comedy. Well, really now, who is that for? It's very hard. We should have done a show about yellow high heel shoes. But I'm serious about that, right? Like, okay, so I can go into the internets and I can go into the data and I can go and scrape conversations, comments, hashtags, uploads, likes, and understand very specifically there is 2,000 people, which is actually going to be tens of millions of people, who have an interest in shoes, in high-end shoes. I say yellow because that's even more specific. So how we approach the data scrape using our thing is we go and we find, okay, there's an audience talking, sharing, uploading, liking high-end shoes. Of all the colors out right now, what is the color that is maybe on trend within the conversation of fashion? You go and you look at foot fetishes. Seriously, like you go and understand that audience. You start to put those Venn diagrams together and you come up with this really specific data point, audience gap that you can go and make a show for.
Yeah. Well, for myself and also at our company, because it's a creative company. So we're always coming from the point of story first, and the characters and the story world, and I mean that's we live and breathe and die by the story. But within that, and looking at and having this vast amount of data that is available to every creator, producer, storyteller, what have you, even in the creative process, if the characters are a certain age, we're looking at what does this average. Let's just say that they're 20 some odd, female living in New York, 20 some odd years old, works at a fashion magazine, and she wears yellow high heels. She has a fetish, in fact. So
I'm not 20 something.
but definitely there's so much information available online in terms of who is this character in the virtual world. So to make my character on the page three-dimensional, it's so easy to actually pull all this data and create this three-dimensional character and actually put them in a place where they're, what kind of, digital devices do they have? What are their habits? It's so easy to actually find that information and craft this very live 3D 20-year-old something.
This persona.
Yes, exactly. And that data is just available to us as storytellers, as marketers, et cetera. So plugging that in. So that's part of the process in terms of the world, what actually is happening in that world and with those people. And that's part of the creative process. So we're using data there. And then actually once the story is developed and the characters developed and the story arcs and we know what the music's going to be, and even if we're casting and directors and everything else, then the model that I've created and that we use, it's basically then breaking down every detail of that story universe and those characters, and identifying what the different points of interest of any audience member, how they can connect to the material. Whether it's music, whether it's the talent, whether it's the subject matter, it could be conspiracy, etc. Mm-hmm. And then from there, identifying, okay, so where is the audience that actually connects to those different types of points of interest? And then creating additional content, because we're multi-platform content creators, additional content that can be distributed in social media, it could be a comic book, it could be a live experience, that the audience that I had identified based on the points of interest, that they can find the content. So it's a lot of different kinds of data models that we're putting all of our projects through, whether it's story-based content that we create for our clients, and also original IP for our company.
Like, are you
I'm
guys?
waiting for Jack.
Are you guys I actually don't know. Like, with the systems, like, do you have like, do you hack into the IP of social channels? No, not hack in, but like, is it about scraping social? Is it about Nielsen ratings? Is it a mashup of everything? How does it work? How does the system analyze without giving away?
Well, which we're talking about Jack's system, right?
Well, sort of
Or,
either.
yeah,
I
anyone,
don't.
anyone.
Like, we just mess around.
You guys are talking about like just hashtag
Yeah,
searching
yeah.
and things like that, and I don't know if your system's a little bit more than that, but I'm fascinated just listening to you guys speak because I'm wondering how you guys are actually making movies or content from the start. Like, are you telling me that you are actually seeing an opportunity for a show about yellow high-heeled shoes, and then you're hiring a writer to write a show about yellow high-heeled shoes?
Yeah.
Or, because that's pretty backwards from how traditional movie making is made, or any kind of storytelling is actually made. So I'm kind of like fascinated as I'm listening to this because that's pretty unique. I mean, I understand there's opportunities out there for sure, and I love the idea that we're talking about, and I want to hear more of your perspective on this too, because you're looking at audience as well and then delivering stories for them. You're very specific. You know, one of the things that I like to look at is the idea of, okay, we hear it all the time, the over 55 audience is very underserved in the film world. Great. And every once in a while, and I'll see when My Dreams comes out, or another movie comes out, really plays to that audience, and goes for week after week after week. And that's a studio took a chance on buying that movie and actually releasing that movie and putting the economic model together to say, can I make some money on this movie? But they didn't come out and say, wow, 55-plus-year-olds, they're really worried about what's going to happen when everybody around them goes away, and let's make a movie about that. It's just interesting kind of points. The movie's better than I just described it, by the way.
where I'm interested, like, if 55, I'd want to go and like make a show for 55-year-old women who are single, who live in motorhomes. In like, that's well, in a sense, actually, yes. I bet you there is a massive but very targeted market, and so this is the thing. It's like fishing in a sense. Now, I'm talking on a very specific and maybe slightly smaller scale, but you can make a sports film, or you can make a film about, and not just about ultimate frisbee. I'd even go and identify who, what, when, where, what, frisbee golf. But I guess I use this example. We run a whole YouTube channel called Verve Girl, which is for 24-year-old women who don't need boyfriends, But every show we make.
Who's on that channel?
I
see a hand up in the back.
We are the largest youth channel in Canada. We're bigger than Much Music and MTV combined. We have identified something very specific for women who do not, we say don't need boyfriends. Every show we make is quite, all the female protagonists are about of that age group. None of them define themselves by men in their life. Mm-hmm. So there's many different shows, from a show about
you start with
people in university who are vampire hunters to an alternative wedding show. But in doing that, I think we can go to a very specific group and have a discussion. And to me, this has come from the model of watching the traditional system go out and say, like, hey, we're going to make a procedural about firefighters. And that, to me, is where the broadcast, I'm speaking in broadcast, not features, that's where this system is collapsing on itself. The reason HBO and AMC, and I would argue they're doing it on the broadcast level. Game of Thrones is a show made for 2,000 people, in a sense, about something that went larger.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of what you're talking about, for sure. It's interesting if we could transition this a little bit to like more feature film and a bigger film, which I know you do as well, because it's really interesting that you're talking about the VOD model in a sense, is because a lot of times the films are made, they're acquiring films at the festival that weren't made with this model, but can they be marketed with that same model? Can we look at these movies, and I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about that, can we look at these movies and kind of drill down, almost draw the Venn diagram when we look at this project and say, so what's the kind of the juicy center? Mm-hmm. Do you call it the juicy center? Or you call it something more technical than that?
The sweet spot.
The sweet spot. We'll go with that. When you go into that and then figure out how can you hit them, and is it going to be a traditional theatrical run? Is it going to be a VOD run? Is it going to just go right to Amazon Prime or Netflix or something like that?
Well, I mean, so many things I want to say. But in terms of just even in Hollywood, so much material, content, when it comes to television and films, it's gaming, most of it is based on source material. So it's coming from a previous book, it's coming from some other form for the most part in terms of what actually gets...
Successful stuff.
Well, most of the successful, yes, because it already has a built-in audience. So there was data already there. You know, like that was identifying an audience and then creating a movie, or creating a show, or creating a game, or creating toys.
Right, even book sales
so
is data, right?
Exactly. So Hollywood actually is more based on data because it's very risk averse. So they're really looking for these built-in audiences. So it's really
Studios
it's
for certain.
For certain, and we see it in television. Traditional television quite a bit. I mean, every other show in the States anyway is superhero. Everything's
In Canada,
superhero.
it's hockey, just so you know.
Okay, and frisbee apparently, but and golf frisbee now. But so data has been used just historically, especially again a lot of content being created from source material. Especially in comic books, that's another huge one. Doesn't necessarily have to be superhero, but just comic books in general. Tremendous source of material. But like the ability that I have, and it sounds like Jay is definitely doing as well. And this is also just what we do in our company, because we're also a service company. There are many clients and networks that will come to us saying, okay, well, this is a trend, or these are trends that are happening. We want to hit this demographic, etc. What kind of shows can you come up with? Pitch us some shows that actually cover all this. So absolutely, we're using the same models, and it's coming from zeitgeist. It's just topics of interest from a buyer, from a potential buyer.
How do you? I know that's not. I don't want to derail you here, but
Sure.
This is the issue that we see. Like, okay, enough zombie movies already, enough vampire movies already. Like, how do you get to the point where it's okay? This is tired. Like, does your firm have a way of weighing that? Okay, we weren't ready for another comic book movie or a dark one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these discussions really happen up front, and many times it goes down to educating the client. In terms of, okay, well, it's exactly, the industry or the space, if it is zombie, it's so oversaturated. What would be so different about this? And granted, we would be the ones that come up with that, but initially it's like, really, is there enough space for one more zombie television series, et cetera? So all of these things have to, we look at all of these things to begin with, but then once, we identify a potential space that could be really exciting coming from a trend, then it's about really being creative and coming up with a great story and characters that tie that in.
Yeah, no, I know we want to get to what you have, because we keep talking, but it's going to be so fascinating because everything you're saying, it sounds so good when we talk about it, but the worst comment you can ever get from an audience on a movie is it's formulaic, it's predictable, I've seen it before, and we're starting about talking about these things that are coming from those nuggets of that, in a sense. So it's just dangerous how you kind of navigate that.
But it's the creative process. It's the creative
well, that's
process
what I love
that'll
that you
make
said.
it.
It's the creative that makes it different.
Totally,
So, okay.
absolutely.
Was there, you guys, Mike, you did data when you were sort of transferring between the campaign process into creating for Beasts, right? How did that work for you?
Yes, but I mean, it's so funny listening. It's so funny listening to this because it's the epitome of the kind of movie that there is no. I mean, it represents.
There's no model for that.
There is no, like you were saying about Game of Thrones. No one would have, that pitch, or even no one was talking about 6-year-old girls in remote Louisiana bayous. It's like you could never have found that stuff, and so that sort of informs how we. Completely different, and it gets to what you were saying. I mean, the way that we come at material is completely filmmaker based. So a filmmaker comes to us and says, "This is a film that I want to make. Here's the script that I have." And I don't think that their process has much to do with kind of scraping the internet and seeing what was popular. And usually in this sort of independent space where we work, it's very personal filmmaking. Sometimes there are genre elements, but it's just so detached from that kind of research. Now, but at the same time, it's funny because if I had a script that came my way and it was in such a specific world as like ultimate frisbee players who go to the Musée d'Orsay.
Can we change the name of the panel?
But like, if it was about such a specific world, that would actually really appeal to me. So that doesn't have anything to do with data in my head. It's just sort of like, as a producer, I'm interested in helping tell stories that take place in places we've never really been. And it so happens that maybe one of those places is something that's actually there's a lot of people out there who want to hear about it. But
Is that from a creative point of view, like I want to tell a story that hasn't been told before, or is it
Yeah.
from I can easily target these people and sell it?
No, very much the first one. And there's such a disconnect between the first and the second. And
Yeah.
I wonder like how there could be more of a kind of cross section, because even when I'm trying to get financing for that film, let's say I want to make that film, I don't think that the data about that comes into play. I wish it kind of could, and I wish it could be something that I could show to an investor to say, I swear there's a lot of people who are interested in this world out there.
Well, hi, I'm Gary. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah, great. I mean, but I think there's like kind of a disparity between, somebody who works, we work out of an old firehouse in New Orleans, and then like, marketing companies and research companies that actually do this stuff and that would be helpful. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a very, very grassrootsy, independent world here, but that we could certainly benefit from that. That wasn't at all what you asked me about, but anyway.
It's okay. Jack, we talked a lot about that as well, about whether or not, how do you use the data to inform business decisions, to inform financiers, to inform, to get the money coming into you?
Yeah, definitely. I think data helps a lot, especially some of our clients use our software to convince investors to put money, to back their films up. It provides evidence and data to show, right? Not just saying, hey, my gut feeling feels right. This is the way to go.
Which is a constant struggle for creators, because as creators we'd feel like, there is something almost magical and artistic about our process of taste making without using data.
I agree with that. Actually, I respect that. Nowadays, I find out, data is useful, but 80% of the time, you can see this convergence of how the gut feelings of those experienced professionals have the same output of the data would produce. But it's that 20% that data produces is different from them that gives them, wow, does that work? And we can show how the data in the past that worked, right? And how that could inform their decisions.
Okay.
And some of our clients are even using our outputs to do creative decisions. They're making creative decisions based on our outputs, which is really amazing to see. And we do get that convergence of the creative producers saying, wow, why didn't we think of that before? And we can show that with data. So,
What point in the process are you getting involved?
we're involved with different stages with different clients. We have been involved with pre-production mostly. So during that stage, they can make.
So is that after cast is already signed on, or is that here's what we're thinking? Tell me what
No,
you think.
before the cast is signed on. So it's really early stage. We can.
Even in raising money?
Yeah, even some clients are using the reports to raise money, and we can create some sort of suggestion money, and we can create some sort of suggestion list telling you, hey, here's a list you should, cast list you should look at, or just a list of things you should do before you look for investment, because they will
Will
bump
Smith,
up.
Denzel Washington. Oh wait, that's proprietary, sorry.
I want to actually just continue this conversation a little bit to really distinguish the different kinds of creations or the different kinds of places that you can come at in terms of creating story. And one we're talking about certainly, and especially for our company, when we do have this service side where a client will come and they want to meet some objectives. And then it's about, me and us coming up with a really creative idea to incorporate all that where it's organic and seamless so that no one feels, the audience doesn't feel like they're being sold or it's inorganic. It's just, hopefully, a strong piece of content. And then there's the other side of our company where we're creating original IP. And this very much falls in line with where Michael is, where this is coming from the gut, it's coming from the passion, it's coming from the love, it's coming from an idea that we really, really, really believe in. But once that's developed, then we definitely run it through our model to see what we identify what the potential audience is, because we need that information to sell it. So it basically works both ways, whether you're just starting purely in a creative place with no influence from the outside, and then of course all the influence from the outside, and then you're being really creative about telling the story that incorporates that.
It's funny, it's almost to my advantage though as a producer, now that I'm thinking about it, to have that that data be a little bit obscure and kind of a question mark when I'm talking to financiers, and because
Unless it's positive.
yeah, unless it's positive.
Then
yeah.
you're a real producer.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, I think it's actually more on, it probably comes into play more for distribution companies than thinking about picking it up, but it's sort of part of my job to convince an investor that this really personal story that happens to take place in this really specific world is worth telling and has universal aspects. I mean, I shouldn't ever say that if I don't believe it to an investor, but that is sort of, otherwise
Yeah,
I
of
shouldn't
course.
be taking on that movie. If I don't believe in it, I shouldn't be taking
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, and I hope everybody thinks like you're thinking, because one of the big dangerous things of all of this is the idea that things will become formulaic and things will
Right.
come by computer and automation. And I love the idea that a director is passionate about a story that has to be told. I mean, we can look at what wins the Academy Awards every year, and no computer ever would have said 12 Years a Slave, make that movie.
Right,
I mean, maybe that would have said that. I don't know. We'll see in a few minutes. But Whiplash is this great example. It's like, come on, that movie shouldn't have gotten made based on what we're talking about here, but of course it should have gotten made. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a unique story. So I love what you're saying, but the other topics that you talked about are really interesting too, is the idea of distributors using this data. And that's certainly where we get involved. We might get hired by a studio to take a look at a project and say, tell me who the audience is going to be for this. They're already greenlit the project, but guess what
Right.
they want to do? Transformers wants to bring in, that's Paramount. Paramount wants to bring in GM to bring all the cars into Transformers. Well, GM's not going to do that just because it's a movie. They're going to need the data to show why they should do that. So you have all this data to get money into, help with the production, to get promotional partners in, and things like that, and understand who we're marketing to. And I agree, that's when the data really can be helpful with that point.
I think this might be a good time to take a look at the slides that you had prepared.
You're really hyped up, though. This better be.
Well, we also want to go to Q&A shortly, so I think let's take a look at the slides just to frame it. Well, actually, you can frame it, but we did some predictions about some of the films that are in selection based on a data model.
Yes, maybe let me just go a little bit over how the framework works. If you look at the diagram on the right, every data point in the diagram represents a single film, where the marketing spend is measured on the horizontal axis, and the box office is measured on the vertical axis. So if a film is really far up right, it's being spent a lot on marketing, but also it had a great box office success. The green line you see in the graph is the benchmark, where it's generated by taking the average of average of box office growth of movies with similar marketing spend. So it offers a benchmark that you can compare to. So movies that are above this benchmark are the ones that outperform other average movies and the ones you want to make, right? And the ones below the benchmark is the ones that are dogs. You don't want to make those movies. So we try to correlate this with a percentage that says on the graph. 59% is the percentage where the total data points that's above the line showing on the graph. 41% is the total percentage of movies or data points below the line. In this one, we're seeing Johnny Depp's overall performance in past years. It's 59% over the average, over the benchmark, which reflects.
It's kind of so-so.
Yeah, which reflects what he's been doing lately, right? It's less consistent performance in the box office.
Is this weighted?
No, it's not. It's not weighted, but you can adjust the time period. You can say, okay, I only look at 5 years, 10 years, 4 years.
Right, but I mean by like a weighting is like Pirates of the Caribbean will like cover like 20 box office losses.
Yeah, we'll get back to that shortly.
Okay.
So if we just look at this, it's like, so-so, it's okay. But if we do Johnny Depp in crime drama biography movies, only 2 data points, but they are both above the line, which means, hey, this guy's really good in crime drama biography movies, and audiences have shown their interest in this type of movies with Johnny Depp in it. Even though it's only 2 data points, but it's more likely that audiences still enjoyed seeing him in this type of movies, which is also the genre that Black Mass belongs in. If we look at the plot of Black Mass, it's crime drama biography based on a true story. And we can see 100% of movies in the past that's crime drama biography, which emphasizes on true story, are above the benchmark. And that shows audience have great interest in seeing this type of movies in the past, and it's more likely that Black Mass will follow the same trend. And this is the type of patterns that that our company does. And we're obviously very bullish on this movie, and we think will do very well in the box office because data suggests that the odds are in its favor. Now we can look at Legend, which is another crime movie, but this one relies more on the thriller element. First, we can look at Tom Hardy in thrillers. It's really 50-50. It doesn't offer any assurance to.
You have 2 Tom Hardys.
Well, to have one, it's 50-50, right?
Yeah.
But if we look at crime thriller biography movies, even though we only have 3 data points in the system, only one of them is above the benchmark. It doesn't offer much assurance either. If we take a step back, we look at crime thriller movies based on true story, which is what Legend is. Data is suggesting the same thing. Only 33% of all those movies made in the past are above the benchmark. So
Legend's a dud.
it's most likely not to be as good as Black Mass. That's what I would say. But data is suggesting that the odds are not in its favor, obviously, and it's still a chance for it to succeed, 33%, but it's relatively low.
Do you guys think that this is this?
Well, can I ask a question? What
Yes.
did you model out Straight Outta Compton?
It's true. No, I didn't do that, but I could if I had.
I would just wonder how that would
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah, actually, I did some study on that. Rap music in music genre was showing great percentage, but I forgot what the exact number is. But rap music in music genre is showing great percentage on my model.
It's going higher.
Yeah, it's much higher than 50-50.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Number one, marketing spending is secret. So are you pulling like Nielsen data to see points? Are you using media spend, or you actually have P&A numbers?
P&A numbers, we didn't go for Nielsen because they do not release a number to people like us. But we do have a proprietary system to estimate that number. On average, we use a training set and to estimate these numbers, and we came up with a proprietary method that could generate about 90% accuracy on average for marketing.
Okay, we'll check some of your movies after, and I'll let you know. Because that's a huge thing, and I think if you look at if you plotted just all marketing spending with all movies, you're going to see that green line.
That's where
why
the
you have
line
that green
is
line there.
showing
Okay, that makes a lot of
going
sense.
up, yeah.
And number two, did you put word of mouth into any of these movies? Because a lot of these movies you're looking at here are rollouts, and the release strategy can affect a lot of what's happening. I know that's probably affected in your marketing spending, but how is word of mouth? How good a movie is based on that? Because there's 2 things we can look at: is these elements that you put together. Not only would they show you a movie, but you can also then talk about, all right, how good is that movie, and how can that actually affect things?
Yes, as you can see on the left, there's a word list, or word cloud, as you call it. Actually, in one of them, it's not showing here, we do have critically acclaimed, which is word of mouth, sort of, and we tend to explain all the other elements, other than marketing spend, from the word cloud on the left side.
Cool.
Because from my study, marketing spend is one most effective way to affect the box office.
Yeah, not just your study. That's fact.
That's a fact. Yes.
Seeing this is going to, if it isn't already, this is a boardroom at 20th Century Fox on Tuesday, and like this is actually really scary. I think to look at the keywords. Like I saw the word beer, airport, female nudity. Like, can't you imagine? I joked before we came in here. One day there will be an Academy Award winning film, and someone will step on stage and said this was entirely written by a computer. and to me, this is like seeing into the matrix of where that goes.
But there's a studio out there that already says they do this exact same thing.
There is, and look at
There's
the
2.
crap that we get every summer that we complain about. Apparently, the system is telling us this is what we want. I see us as the audience actually almost in a way rejecting that. I bet you the system told us we wanted Fantastic Four, even something like the Avengers and the Marvel
Well, I
Avalanche
think you put
coming.
Fantastic Four into this, and I think you'd have to be off the charts. I think you'd have to have comic book movie, The Rock. No, I'm kidding.
But I mean
The Thing.
that is it is a slippery slope. I think this is a fascinating thing to look at. I also wonder where I'm coming at it from the low budget independent features. You don't have the name. How does that, just where this goes in future, in the great divide of content creation, it's fascinating and it's useful, but it's a scary glimpse into.
And I
Yeah,
think that's one of the things that it's definitely a balance that we need to be able to navigate and to manage. And there's a constant struggle between duty as a creator, duty to your service providers, whether or not we are creating mindless puppets with this type of information, or if it can be used to assist in making decisions that mitigate risk or that are able to identify audiences to ensure monetization and critical acclaim. Is that, yeah, I got the mantra right? Yeah, so I think I feel like we're running out of time a little bit, yeah. So this panel could go on forever. Couldn't we? Can we all just go have lunch afterwards or something? Like, let's go for drinks or something like that. But let's open it up to the audience for a little bit.
I'm up for drinks, but they don't look like they do very well.
Let's open up to the audience. I'm going to, if our mic runners are positioned. All right, I'll take a question over here.
Check, check. Thank you. When you talk about big data in general, when it really works well, like in the case with the Obama campaign in 2012, we celebrated and said, like, it's such a great thing, let's copy the models, let's do this every single time. But then when it fails, Steven Soderbergh had a State of the Industry speech in San Francisco Film Festival 2 years ago, and he was talking about how they did all the matrix and all analysis on side effects, and how it just failed completely to predict. They might as well could have just guessed. So my question would be, when big data fails, how do you adjust your models? What do you do? How do you learn from this? Thank you.
I love that question.
You want me to answer? Well, first of all, there's no perfect model. There's always a randomness in it. If you involve human behaviors into it, there's always randomness. But on some level, you can draw some insights from the past experience. That's how we people learn, same as what we call this machine learning, because it learns from the past. There's really no perfect way of doing this, but if we can do it on some level, 80 to 90%, it still works, right? If 10% of the chance we fail, and we end up putting that data points back to the system and adjust our system, then we're enhancing the model while maybe seeing other aspects we're not seeing before.
Do you account for randomness in your model?
Yeah, that's why we have the percentage sign there. It's not go or not go, it's percentage, right? So there's a randomness introduced in the model.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm actually just curious if there's, if you have any way entering the emotional journey or the emotional connection that the audience can make with this content, because I think that's at the beginning, the middle, the end of the day, that's really the driver. You know, people need to connect with a story or a character or a world.
Yeah, in fact, we're actually working on that right now. It's something called natural language processing. We can tell the sentiment of audience comments and stuff like that, but yeah.
There's a question over here.
Sorry, I guess my question feeds off of the first question here. So with big data, we're working with present and past information, but I'm wondering if in your modeling and your algorithms, there's any predictive ongoings there. So for example, the superhero bubble is going right now, but eventually that bubble is going to burst. So as a contextual example, I'm wondering if there's anything in your programming that would allow you to foresee when that might happen.
It is very interesting to look at that, and as you mentioned, the superhero genre in the system's not, I don't know the exact number in my head, but it's not showing very super high percentages. Even if you only look at Marvel Entertainment ones, it's not showing very high percentages because it's accounted for marketing spend. They spend a lot of money on marketing. If you only look at box office, it's huge, but if you account for marketing, it's not that big. And you can draw some insights through that, saying, hey, what are the elements that pushed superhero movies above that? What are the elements that pulled it down from that? So I think to tell if this genre will explode or not, you should also looking at other aspects, not just looking at superhero. Because if it dies out, and because people didn't realize they're not hitting the ones that people wanted to see in the superhero, other elements in the superhero movie that people wanted to see, but focusing on the unknown or the lower aspects of that, it's not a very good indicator of how this genre would explode.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I think my answer is anybody that says yes to that is lying, because I don't think we know the answers to that. I mean, you look at the stock market from a couple of weeks ago when that tanked. Nobody sold everything on Friday, so Monday they came in and took all the losses or shorted everything. But after the fact, oh, everybody saw the writing that was on the wall, and we knew that the correction was in line. And I think that's something that we do a lot in the film industry, is we are smarter after the fact. And I think the answer is that we don't know. That's why these $100 million movies are getting greenlit, because we do think everything is going to keep going up and up and up and up. But it's an interesting point. The first one that can tell you when that is up, maybe I have my money on you. It's good. That'll be worth it.
I think we have time for one more question. One more question on this side.
Oh, it's on? Okay, sorry. There's a lot of talk about the statistics for pre-production. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about in the marketing side of things, because obviously, a lot of people will make a film. The filmmakers will have a certain audience that they have in mind, and then the distributors and stuff will have a different idea. And I think a good example, for example, is Straight Outta Compton. When I've told people about, I really love that movie, but I tell people about, oh, you should see it, and they're like, oh, I don't really like rap music. And it's like, no, and I think the strength of that movie is that it's really about just about getting out of social class and getting and racial discrimination and like that, and a lot of really interesting topics that are a bit more universal than if you like NWA or not. So so I was just wondering, like, how much of that goes into a process. Like, do you get brought in when a film is delivered and we're talking about, okay, how we're going to market it? Do you look at those kinds of tools about actually putting the marketing plan together?
Yeah, I mean, I could take this because this is what we do, and we're going to be doing a panel on Sunday.
On Sunday, yep.
One something?
Yeah.
That's all we know.
That's
going to be on that topic.
It's in your schedule.
So come on by. But a quick sneak preview of that is, I mean, that's what we do, is the idea of that. I love Compton as an example. And Whiplash is another good example. And that you just described word of mouth in a bottle is, some of these movies, they're so hard to get past it being a movie about rap music. Southpaw is a movie about boxing. Whiplash is a movie about drumming. But then you see these movies and it's about so much more than that. So a big job that we have is we show movies to audiences well before they come out. And we understand what themes they're responding to. We then go ahead and test materials, test trailers, and put data points behind who's the most likely people to want to see this movie in the first week, who's the most likely people to want to see this movie in the fourth week after they hear exactly what you just said. And then we work very close with distributors. And I used to run marketing at Weinstein, and back in Miramax, we defined the rollout platform model, and it was doing exactly that. At what time, not to release the monster, but instead it is, ooh, I'm tying it in. At what point it's the right time to release the movie in the marketplace, because a Compton is an unusual example. But when you look at a Whiplash, if that movie opened in Kansas City the same day it went in New York and LA, would have died. No chance. Yeah. But kind of learning those learnings that we have about the themes and how they can get out in front before the movie catches up to that in that marketplace is really helpful. So there is a lot of data. We'll get into it more on Sunday.
Something I just want to add, just in terms of Compton, is that script and that effort and that team, it took like at least, I think it was like 10 years to actually make that film. It went through so many studios. It was optioned several times. I mean, it was just an incredible history just for that particular movie to get made. But what happened was the demographic changed, not only in the U.S. but just even globally, and that's what supported the film now. So that's something else to really look at. Really, the depth and the level of the demographic of your particular
Gravity,
project.
Argo, other movies are the same kind of thing that just expand outside of that.
And I think with that we are out of time, but what I will do is I will ask the speakers who, if you do have some time, if you could be in the Filmmakers Lounge immediately afterwards. I think there probably are more questions to be asked if you have some time after the session. But if you can just, so we have on our panel, we have Jack Zhang, we have Jay Bennett, Yvette Vargas, Gary Faber, and Michael Gottwald. If you can all just please give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And that wraps us up. So in the Filmmakers Lounge.